What's up, guys? It is Sang here from Exiled Power, the 2-day raiding guild on Arthas. And today I'm here to talk to you about everything you need to know about the Havoc Demon Hunter. And I am super excited because I've finally, for the first time, gotten my hands on the Demon Hunter as of Tuesday. So as you guys know, Demon Hunters have become available as the Legion invasion has started. And so while we only have access to a couple of talents right now, I know a lot of the WoW community like me is just getting their hands on Demon Hunter for the first time, just getting to experience the gameplay, all the things we've been reading about, watching videos about for so long. And so my goal today is to tell you everything you need to know about Havoc Demon Hunter. We're going to talk about stat priority, talents, the leveling, dungeon, and raiding experience, and I'm going to give you my final verdict on the Demon Hunter in the pre-patch and what we have to look forward to going into Legion. So if you have any questions that I don't address in this video, I would be happy to answer those. Just leave a comment in the section down below. Also, if you find this helpful, we have all kinds of resources for other classes, other specs, all kinds of videos looking forward to Legion. If you haven't checked those out, be sure and do that. And please toss us a subscribe down below. That really helps us out a lot as we're trying to continue to pump out just content for the WoW community. So that being said, let's jump right in. I'm going to try and cover what you need to know about Demon Hunter for pre-patch and Legion. Okay, so first things first, stat priority. Okay, I feel like most of you probably already know that the Demon Hunter is a leather-wearing class. Agility is going to be their primary stat. Okay, but let's talk about the other stats that are going to be important and why they're going to be important so you can understand this. So following agility, the most important stat for the Havoc Demon Hunter is critical strike. And the main reason that crit is so important is obviously like it increases additional damage to your attacks and abilities, but more importantly, it has good interplay with Chaos Strike. So Chaos Strike, as you know, is your main Fury spender. Costs 40 Fury. You slice your target for 715% of weapon Chaos damage, and you critical strikes with Chaos Strike refund 20 Fury. Okay, so it's a 40 Fury base cost. It refunds 20 Fury if you crit. So it spends the initial 40, refunds 20 if that's a critical strike. Okay, the other interesting thing about Chaos Strike is that the attack deals its damage in two parts, so there's actually two swings to it. And if one crits, both of those will crit. And so you get some really, really nice damage from Chaos Strike. That's where you get most of your burst, is from building up Fury and using Chaos Strike and some of your AoE abilities. Okay, so naturally you want to crit as much as possible to refund that Fury, so that's why crit is so important. Following that, it's a little bit less exciting, is versatility. So versatility is just a flat damage and healing increase by your percentage of versatility, and it also reduces the amount of damage you take by half whatever your versatility percent is. So if you have 10% versatility, you're going to deal 10% additional damage, and you're going to receive 5% less damage. Okay, and so it's just a flat damage increase and a flat damage reduction for the Havoc Demon Hunter. Both are important because more damage is more damage, right? That's a good thing. The other thing is because we're so mobile and we move around so much, it's really easy to take accidental damage. It's really easy to get cleaved by things, just to run into AoE that can normally be avoided. And so any kind of damage reduction you can take is going to be a good thing for Demon Hunter. Following that is going to be haste. Okay, haste is going to cause your auto attacks to happen faster. It's going to cause a couple of abilities to cool down, for their cooldown to come up faster. Specifically, Blade Dance and Fell Blade will be affected by haste. So those are just some AoE abilities that are going to be really important. So haste just makes those come off cooldown faster. You can spam them more. Okay, and then following that is mastery. The mastery right now for Havoc Demon Hunter is called Demonic Presence. It increases your chaos damage and movement speed by whatever percent mastery you have. Okay, and this isn't horrible, right? Because most of your abilities, your attacks that you do, they deal chaos damage. And more movement speed is good, right? A lot of the fights in Legion, a lot of the dungeons and raids are very movement heavy. Okay, so mobility is a good thing. But unfortunately right now the way mastery scales for us, it's just not as important as other stats. But that's just kind of like the basic stat priorities. Let's go ahead and jump into the talents. We'll talk about them first specifically for the pre-patch, because we still have a little bit of time with that, and then we will move on to I'm not going to go over every talent, but I'm going to go over the talents that I plan on running going into Legion because they're going to be really strong and they blend together really well. Okay, so regarding the pre-patch, your first tier level 99 talent, the best talent that you can run right now is Fel Mastery. It is the best target for both single target and AoE situations, and so you're basically going to want to run it all the time. So Fel Mastery increases your Fel Rush damage by 50%, and it also causes it to generate 25 Fury when you damage at least one target. So this is a damage increase single target and for AoE scenarios. And if you've played Demon Hunter at all, you know that Fel Rush actually hits really hard, especially if you have a lot of targets in it. You can pump out some serious damage with that. Chaos Cleave actually could function okay in a scenario where you know you're going to have a constant dual target cleave scenario. There just aren't that many of those. And then lastly, Blind Fury. Unfortunately right now would only be usable in scenarios where you're like in a dungeon and you've pulled like half the dungeon and you know you're really not doing another big pull for the next 45 seconds. You can do some crazy damage in that scenario, but in a raid environment it's really not going to be very useful. But dungeons and leveling, it's not necessarily bad because you can basically kill anything within that one I-beam for the most part. So, but for everything else, Fel Mastery is going to be pretty much the go-to ability. For your tier 2 level 100 talents, surprisingly right now in the majority of situations, and this is actually really surprising to me, Demon Blades is going to be the best one for you to go to. So Demon Blades replaces your Demon's Bite, which is your Fury generator, and it causes your auto attacks to have a 75% chance to deal additional shadow damage and generate Fury. Now, the Blizzard devs have said verbatim in their last update a couple of weeks ago that this is not intended to be the top damage talent. Okay, I mean, they came out and said if you run Demon's Blades, you are not choosing the top DPS talent for that tier. Okay, but right now, Demonic Appetite just is not useful at all. Prepared is still good, it's just lacking later talents that make it the top damage choice. But Prepared is still good. So Prepared reduces the cooldown to Vengeful Retreat by 10 seconds and generates 40 Fury over 5 seconds if you damage at least one enemy with Vengeful Retreat. Okay, my encouragement to you is go ahead and use Prepared. Okay, if you plan on trying to be competitive with your damage, you plan on raiding at the maximum level, you want to use every bit of juice the Havoc Demon Hunter has, go ahead and start getting used to Prepared gameplay. Okay, go ahead and get used to Fel Rush and Vengeful Retreat, the synergy between the two, because it's going to be the best thing for us going into Legion, and it's very different. It's very movement heavy. You're spinning around all over the place gameplay, trying to figure out what the best places to position is, try to dodge mechanics. Okay, if you use Demon Blades right now, it's not going to generate that kind of experience that you can use these couple of weeks for. Okay, use the pre-patch for what it's for, get ready for Legion, get used to Prepared. Okay, that's all that's going to matter for the pre-patch, because that's all we get, unfortunately. But moving on, let's talk about the talents once again. I'm not going to talk about all these, just the ones that I'm going to run for pretty much top damage. And I'll give you some freedom later talents, possibly. So for your 102 talent, you're going to want to run Fellblade, which you charge your target and you deal 560% fire damage. Your Demon's Bite has a chance to reset the cooldown of Fellblade, and this ability also generates 30 Fury. So basically just adds another button to your rotation. It kind of complicates the spec a little bit more. And your Fury generator has a chance to reset this cooldown, so it's going to be popping up, helping you generate more Fury, and it just does pretty solid damage. Naturally, it's on a 15-second cooldown, but this is reduced by haste. 104 Netherwalk is probably going to be the best one for most scenarios. It replaces your Blur. It's on a 1.5 minute cooldown. You slip into the Nether, increasing movement speed by 100% and becoming immune to damage, but you are unable to attack. This lasts for 5 seconds. So basically this is kind of like the Havoc Demon Hunter equivalent of Cloak of Shadows for a rogue. And if you raided with a rogue in Warlords of Draenor, you know that Cloak of Shadows is amazing. and you can use it to negate and solo a lot of mechanics that actually were intended for the entire raid to absorb. So I expect Netherwalk to be very useful in the same way that Cloak Shadows was. For 106, you're going to want to run Momentum, and this is why Prepared and Fell Mastery are important. Momentum, your Fell Rush and Vengeful Retreat increase your damage done by 20% for 4 seconds. Right, and this is what makes Fell Mastery and Prepared the best talents for 99 and 100, because Momentum right now is really, really strong. It's a 20% damage increase, but it requires you to have that movement-heavy gameplay. Now, if you want to sacrifice some numbers, you don't have to do that. You don't have to run Momentum. There are some other combinations that you can run. There are some scenarios that I have seen where Nemesis was used in some interesting ways, specifically in Mythic dungeons and things like that. Nemesis can be good. Fell Eruption can actually hit ridiculously hard, so if there was a scenario where you needed just like some kind of crazy burst, maybe it could have some interplay there, but for the most part, Momentum paired with Prepared and Fell Mastery is going to be the best thing for you to go. Now, to just be as clear as possible, if you're not going to run Momentum, then you don't really have as much of a commitment to your previous 2 talents. Okay, or if you just say, you know what, I don't want to run Fell Mastery, I don't want to run Prepared, I want to run Demon Blades instead, okay, you're probably not going to want to run Momentum, because it's just not going to have the synergy that it was intended to. Following that, yeah, you've got a couple of interesting things in this tier. It's not exactly my favorite tier, but you have Throw Glaive now has 2 charges and snares all enemies hit by 50% for 6 seconds. So there are some scenarios where you can kind of get separated from mobs and need Throw Glaive. Plus there's some decent cleave that can happen there. Okay, but mainly that has interplay with Bloodlet in the previous tier, which adds a bleed to your Throw Glaive. So it's not really going to be useful unless you're pairing it with that. You have Unleashed Power, which removes the fury cost of Chaos Nova and reduces its cooldown significantly. So basically it just kind of throws another ability that you can use. Chaos Nova is your stun that deals damage to everything around you, but the fury cost is kind of inconvenient for it, so this is kind of nice. The other option is Demon Reborn, which invoking Metamorphosis also resets the cooldowns of I-Beam, Chaos Nova, and Blur. It's going to be between Demon Reborn and Unleashed Power. It's kind of nice having everything come off cooldown for Metamorphosis, but at the same time, it's not the hardest thing to manage, because if you're doing it like as a part of your opener, then everything's already going to be off cooldown, right? So you don't necessarily have to worry about it in that sense. If you're not going to use it as a part of your opener, you have all fight to manage that. I don't know that it's entirely necessary, so it's probably better just to go ahead and do Unleashed Power. Or if you need to, I mean, I guess you could maybe try and use Master of the Glaive, but I just don't think it's that great. And then for your final 110 tier, you've got Chaos Blades, which is a 2-minute cooldown. Increases all damage done by a percentage, which is based on your mastery, for 12 seconds. And while active, your auto attacks deal 200% increased damage and cause chaos damage. So you know your mastery increases chaos damage. This turns your auto attacks into chaos damage, which is going to be affected by your mastery. And it just gives them 200% increased damage. So there's a lot of synergies going on there with your other stats and talents and things. You've got Fell Barrage, which is at your command unleash Fell, inflicting 250% of attack power as chaos damage to your target and nearby enemies for each charge, maximum 5 charges. Your damaging attacks have a chance to generate a charge. So this can actually provide some pretty ridiculous burst. You can build up your 5 charges and unleash them all at one time. And it hits really hard, like really, really, really hard. And it's AoE damage, so it can be kind of ridiculous if you build up those charges like for an ad pack or something like that and use Fell Barrage, and it just dies, okay? It just dies. So there's definitely some AoE potential there. Chaos Blades would probably seem like the single target ability if you're going to use it. The other one is Demonic, which I-Beam causes you to enter demon form for 5 seconds after it finishes dealing damage. Okay, so you just get a short 5-second metamorphosis phase, where you can get a few attacks in after you use your I-Beam. This isn't totally bad. I mean, obviously, like, metamorphosis causes everything to be better and deal more damage, so that's good. That's okay. It had more interplay before they made some changes to these talents as far as potentially extending your metamorphosis, but yeah, the last here you got a couple options. Fell Barrage seems like a pretty good AoE burst if you need that. Chaos Blades is just like going to be a single target talent, and Demonic is just some interplay with metamorphosis. So that's kind of where the talents are. Pretty much your decisions are made for you if you're wanting to do maximum DPS, and if you're wanting to have the kind of utility that I would like to have as a player, all the way up to the 110 tier. But I mean, that's okay. We'll talk about it in the gameplay, but the class is not in a bad place. There's just not a whole lot of decisions to be made right now. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the gameplay, right? And we're going to look at gameplay in a few different areas. The first one I want to talk about is the leveling experience for Demon Hunter. Okay, so obviously that's been kind of limited based on the fact that we only have like the initial leveling zone, which you haven't done yet is really awesome. There are a lot of really good cutscenes there. I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't had time to play. But they did a really good job with it. It's got a really good feel to it. It doesn't feel too long. You can finish it in 30 minutes to an hour if you're like blazing through there. There's a lot of cool things to see. You can explore, and you get a really good feel for the class. They did a really good job with it. Okay, but if I had to use one word to describe Havoc Demon Hunter leveling to you, it's smooth. Okay, it's smooth. So if you know, whenever you kill a target as a Demon Hunter, it generates these soul fragments, and when you pick up these soul fragments, they heal you for a huge portion of your health. Okay, and also, if you're running Demonic Appetite, consuming soul fragments generates Fury. So you're probably going to want to run Demonic Appetite when you're leveling. But basically, what that should mean to you, if you don't know the Demon Hunter languages, is you never have to stop ever. Okay, you can pull packs as big as you can imagine. You can Fell Rush and I-Beam and Blade Dance them down stupid fast, heal yourself back to full, and generate full Fury extremely quickly. And you can do that over and over and over again, and you can get around fast. You never have to stop for anything when you're leveling as a Demon Hunter, right? I mean, they have great AoE stuns, they have great mobility, they have great AoE burst, they have great self-healing through talents and through soul fragments. Yeah, they're fantastic to level, right? So if you really don't enjoy leveling and you want a smooth experience, Havoc Demon Hunter is going to be a fantastic choice, because they're really fun. They're really fun to level, really fun to play, and I don't expect that's going to change any in Legion. Okay, dungeons. Okay, so this week I've already done pretty much all of the Mythic dungeons. I had a few guildies get together. We decided we were going to run some. Obviously, we have limited talent, so I'm not getting the full experience for Demon Hunter at this point. I'm not getting to use everything to its maximum potential. Okay, but even now, in maybe item level 695 gear, okay, for these big packs that we're pulling in these dungeons, in these Mythic dungeons, I mean, you're bursting for 120, 150k, right? And that's just with Fell Mastery, and using prepared and really, really bad gear, okay, really, really bad gear. And the burst is on point, right? The burst has a ton of potential, which leads me to think that Havoc Demon Hunters are going to be extremely, extremely strong in dungeons, just because they have a lot of things that are very useful. They have AoE stuns, they have good interrupts, they have good mobility, they can potentially have really good self-healing from soul fragments. They have a lot of different things they bring to the table and they're just going to get more, okay? But quite frankly, I was having more fun playing a Havoc Demon Hunter in a dungeon, trying to like keep in mind mobility, trying to use everything to its maximum potential, utilizing that double jump for some dungeon skips, even like Everbloom and stuff like that. It was a really fun experience. It was a really breath of fresh air for me in dungeons. Okay, my biggest warning to you in dungeons is that if you're using like the top damage gameplay, which is Fel Mastery, Prepared, Momentum, things like that, you got to have some really good peripheral awareness, because positioning is more important than ever when you're going to be dashing around and leaping backwards and doing all those things, quite frankly, as often as possible. So it's really, really easy to accidentally launch yourself over the side, or get yourself out of position and take a lot of damage for a major mechanic. And at least right now, Demon Hunters are really, really soft. So if you're not careful, you can die, and you can have a very unpleasant dungeon experience. But I think they're going to be really strong going into Legion. There's a ton of burst. There is a ton of AoE burst potential, just building up fury and going crazy. So I mean, it was really fun. I think you'll probably be seeing some of that footage that I've got here coming up pretty soon. Okay, lastly, raiding. Yeah, so I'm kind of a glutton for punishment, and so is my guild. So like, they were willing to bring in my Demon Hunter for a little bit of raiding. This week, hopefully, we'll get a little bit more next week, so I can kind of be more informed. Yeah, so they got a few things going for them in terms of raiding. Once again, the gameplay across the board, leveling, dungeons, raiding is extremely fun. It's very different in my opinion from any other class, because it's so movement heavy. So your positioning and things like that become even more important. There's a lot of potential to get around and get to places faster than anybody else, except for maybe like a monk. Okay, but they've also got some pretty decent utility. Right, so the Demon Hunter Interrupt generates 50 Fury if you successfully interrupt, and you always want people to interrupt important spell cast in boss fights, so that's always a good thing. It's always a good incentive to do that. Also, they have a fantastic raid cooldown in Darkness, which basically makes it to where anybody within range of your ability has a chance to completely avoid damage from boss mechanics. That's AoE, single target, things like that. And it's awesome, right? I mean, it's a very noticeable ability. When you throw down Darkness, people stop taking damage, right? And it can be really, really, really strong, especially for tanks, avoiding like major boss hits, things like that. Darkness is a fantastic ability. Okay, the other thing is, if you decide to run Netherwalk, if it ends up being very similar to the way that Cloak of Shadows was useful in Warlords of Draenor, the Netherwalk could possibly be like a mechanic negator. You send in your Havoc Demon Hunter to solo something that normally would require 2 or 3 people. They pop Netherwalk, they don't take any damage, and you just keep going, leaving the rest of your raid to focus on things that are going on. Also, when you have adds, you have a ridiculous amount of burst AoE coming from your Demon Hunters. You have mobility to get there quickly. And then through soul fragments, you're going to heal yourself as you get those killing blows, which is going to help out your healers a lot. And they just have like a lot of variety. Like, they have a lot of variety of usefulness. They have very steady, strong single target damage with good crit. It gets even better. They've got pretty strong raid utility. They have crazy AoE potential. They've got some talents that are going to make them even stronger in each of these ways as we go on. Right, and then you have to consider even legendaries that are going to come out, things that are going to affect your gameplay even more, tier bonuses, trinkets, all these things that can make the Demon Hunter Havoc gameplay not just fun, right? Because everybody's saying right now it's fun, but I can actually see it becoming very, very complicated. Maybe not necessarily specifically in which button you press when. Okay, there's an element of timing there that's going to be important. Okay, but more than that, it's going to require you to be creative in thinking about your positioning and where you're going to be and where you need to stand, and the way you think and prepare for a fight. It's going to be very complicated. I think it's going to be a mental class that you have to think about a lot more than other classes. Okay, so it's fun. I think there's a lot of room for complication to come there as well, and for it to be even more fun. And like I said, the biggest thing I can say about it is it's different. It's a lot different from anything else in WoW, which for me, I need that, right? Having played for a while, I need classes that are different. I need a change of pace. I need a breath of fresh air. Right, so if all those things sound good to you, then I highly encourage, if you haven't already, make a Demon Hunter, spend some time with it, because I think they're going to be in a really, really good place. For the pre-patch, they're fun. You get a fresh kind of view of them. You get to try them before the expansion, which is awesome. I think that's a great idea that Blizzard did. And I think they're only going to get better as we move into Legion. So, if my opinion matters to you at all, if you've watched any of my videos and you're like, hey, this guy might know what he's talking about a little bit, okay, the saying final verdict for Havoc Demon Hunter in the pre-patch and moving into Legion is thumbs up. It's in a good place, it's fun, it's different, there's some variety, there's some utility, there's some major strengths, and I think the weaknesses that are there, okay, there are weaknesses there as there are with every other class. I think if you're a good player, and I think if you're smart, I think if you put in the time and master the class, you can minimize those and be in a really, really good place. And if you're like me, some of you guys are just ready to try something new, right? You want to try something new, you've been playing for a long time. I think Demon Hunter is the thing that you need to try. Also, kind of commenting on what Blizzard said, they've said it's not going to be the most complicated class, and even if you want to make it complicated, and even if it can become complicated through later talents and tier bonuses and things like that, you always have talent choices that make it easier, right? So if you're new to the game, it's a great class for you to learn, for you to pick up and try it out, which is what I think they intended for it to be. Alright, so I hope you find this information helpful. If you have any questions about any of those specific aspects of the class, or even something I didn't mention, like I said, please give me a shout down below. I'll get back to those as soon as possible. Keep an eye on the Exiled Power channel. I'm going to be releasing more Demon Hunter content. I'm going to make a Vengeance video coming up next, and I'm going to be releasing things as Legion comes out, giving you more looks at Demon Hunter, continuing to give you kind of my opinion on those things, and we can just continue to learn about it and get better together. Yeah, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found this video beneficial. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it. This is Sang again from Exiled Power, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day.